The Secret of the Old Mansion, Part 2. The friends' hearts beat in unison with the loud footsteps of the figure approaching them. Emma's brother, with a grim expression on his face, slowly came closer. He looked as though he had stepped out of long-forgotten memories, surrounded by an ominous aura that seemed to envelop everything around him. "You shouldn't have known the truth," he repeated, his voice cold as winter. "It's better if you leave before it's too late." "Why don't you want us to know?" Alia asked, gathering all her courage. "We're just trying to find out what happened to Emma." He sighed, and his expression softened. "I can't tell you the whole story, but be careful. The mansion's secret is guarded not just by me. You're touching something that must remain forgotten." Still, the friends were not ready to give up. "We came here to find answers, and we can't just leave," Anna exclaimed. They understood that the only way to avoid danger was to learn the whole truth. "In that case, follow me," Emma's brother said, and to their surprise, he stepped toward a hidden door that seemed to vanish into the shadows. The friends exchanged glances but followed him. They entered another dark room, where an old table was piled high with books and notes. On the walls hung old paintings of Emma's family, all of them, except for her. On the table lay a large leather-bound volume titled Family Chronicles. Emma's brother opened it and began to read. Emma was not just a victim, he said. She was part of a conspiracy that her family had been weaving for decades. Her disappearance was part of a deal that no one was ever supposed to know about. The friends listened intently, trying to understand how this connected to their investigation. "What deal?" Sergei asked. Emma's family didn't exactly do things honestly. They sought eternal life, and for that, they needed blood. The night Emma disappeared, her sacrifice was necessary, Emma's brother explained, his voice trembling with the weight of the memory. "But you said you wanted to protect her memory," Anna cried. "How is that possible?" "I'm trying to protect myself, too," he replied. Emma wasn't the only victim. Each of us connected to this place could be next. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the room. The friends turned to see the wall behind them slowly opening, revealing a hidden corridor leading downward. Dim light flickered inside the passage. "Go there," Emma's brother shouted, and they ran into the corridor without looking back. In this narrow passage, the walls were decorated with strange symbols and images that seemed alive, as though telling their own story. At the end of the corridor, they entered a large room filled with ancient artifacts and remnants of rituals. Candles stood on a table, seemingly just lit. "This is where they held the rituals," Alia whispered, her voice trembling with fear. "This is where they made sacrifices." "But we can stop this," Maxim said, taking a deep breath. "If we expose it, maybe Emma can find peace." Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was the familiar person who had warned them earlier. "You don't understand what you're getting into," he shouted. "If you don't stop, you will become part of the ritual." "We won't leave until we know the truth," Anna replied, and with those words, they all began to search for ways to destroy the ritual objects on the table. Meanwhile, Emma's brother started laughing hysterically. "You don't understand what you're doing. This isn't just a ritual, it's your fate," he yelled, his eyes gleaming with unnatural light. Suddenly, the candles began to flicker out one by one, and darkness descended upon the room. The friends felt the darkness surround them, but they weren't about to give up. They continued to destroy the objects, their actions resembling a battle against ancient evil. At the most critical moment, a deafening sound rang out. The walls began to shake, and an energy filled the air that was impossible to ignore. The friends felt something pulling at them, as if forces from the other world were trying to stop them. "We have to finish this," Sergei yelled, and together, they kept smashing everything around them. Each object they destroyed freed the space from its grim past, and soon the darkness began to recede. Then, a bright light filled the room, and in the center appeared a farewell vision of Emma. She looked peaceful, her face filled with gratitude. "Thank you for coming," she spoke, and her voice sounded like a whisper in the wind. "Emma, how can we help you?" Alia cried. "Stop this. Destroy the curse. Then I can leave," she replied, and with those words, her image faded, leaving the friends filled with determination. Gathering themselves, they continued their efforts, and soon the light grew so bright that it filled the room, driving the darkness away. Emma's brother collapsed to his knees, and the familiar figure seemed to realize that they could not be stopped. When the last candle went out, and the final ritual object was destroyed, the friends felt the world around them change. It was as if invisible chains had broken, and the mansion was no longer a dark and ominous place. They stepped outside, filled with relief and new knowledge. The night was behind them, but in their hearts, there was no fear, only the understanding that they had become part of something larger. "We did it," Anna whispered, looking at her friends. But in her eyes, a shadow passed, as if they hadn't fully left the dark waters of the past. Now they knew that the secret of the old mansion had been uncovered, but its echoes would still follow them. And perhaps, one day, they would once again face what remains in the shadows, waiting for its time.